Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the new cartoon movie flashback series I will be doing. I'm also still going to do the cartoon flashback where I talk about series and all that, and even individual shorts and episodes. Still, hopefully this week. But still, welcome to cartoon flashback. What can we say about 1986? You probably saw my video where I talked about 1986 or 85 to 87 being the year of movies. Especially if you were Hasbro. Yep. Hasbro basically dominated the mid-80s with a lot of the animated films based on toy franchises that they had turned into series or were turning into series at that time. Now, one of the companies that they depended on to distribute the films into theaters was DEG, short for D. Leonidas Group, or D. Leonidas Entertainment Group. And as I say, DEG for short. Ironically, two of the first movies that they released in theaters were based on Hasbro products. One was released in August of 1986. Make that August 8th, 1986. And the other was released about 2 months before. Now here's what was the contrast and difference between those two. One, basically in August of that year, changed how people looked at animated feature films. Basically because this was the first animated feature film based on a toy product in a kids show that was nothing like, well, was basically the kids show on the big screen, and as some people put it, as a big commercial on the big screen, but was nothing like what they saw in the animated series. Let's just say this show really changed how movies based on animated series or toy franchises were seen at the time and even to this day. The other one, which came out 2 months earlier, was more like a Disney film. Why do I say that? Well, basically it was a musical all the way through. It had songs, everything. The animation was done musical-wise, almost like a Disney. Well, the animation was basically done almost Disney-wise. Not on the quality of Disney then, but it was basically, well, kind of Disney quality in a sense. The story was pretty much a good story. But unlike the movie that came out 2 months after that, this movie served as sort of a bridge between the two specials that preceded it and the series that it was being put into. Basically, this basically was the series pilot. This was the movie pilot for the series. And unlike other movie pilots, it was actually shown in theaters. So what movie am I talking about? Well, how about the one movie that its brand got revived back in 2010 and hasn't looked back since? Of course, I'm talking about the original Generation 1, celebrating its 30th anniversary, or will be celebrating its 30th anniversary, My Little Pony, the movie. Now, some have mistaken and thought this was actually released at the beginning of the year, in 1986. Why do I say that? Because pretty much this was released at the beginning of 2015. Go figure. But still, Hasbro released this through D. Leonidas Entertainment Group, DEG, in 1986, in June of that year. Now, like I said, what a big contrast was, you had this movie come out, and then 2 months later, you had this movie come out and change the whole perspective of how, like I said, how animated shows or any movies based on any kind of product, whether it was animated or live action, especially for kids, were shown in theaters. Because if it was an action show or a toy show, this changed how it was looked at. And what was crazy was back then, this was rated PG, parental guidance suggested, and PG-13 was just coming into being. And 2 months before, this movie came out, and it was rated G. So yeah. Within the first 2 months of the summer of 1986, within the first 2 months of the summer of '86, You had a G movie based on a toy brand, which was a bridging gap of the specials, as well as the new series that was coming out, basically serving as the series pilot. And then 2 months later, you had a big 180, 360 indifference with this one. But the one thing both had in common, however, was both didn't do so well at the box office. Yeah, both didn't do so well at the box office, which basically led to the fact that the other movie that obviously was going to be released under DEG, D. Leonidas Entertainment Group, G.I. Joe the movie, being sent directly to video and directly to television. So yeah, excuse me for a second. So yeah, basically that's what happened. I had to move something there. But yeah, basically that's what happened. Both movies, because both movies bombed at the box office, G.I. Joe the movie ended up being put on television and on video directly. Now, a lot of people say that the other reason was because they needed to finish up on production, mostly to clean up or fix up or redub one scene in particular, all in response about what happened here. Because obviously it seemed to me that the similarities, if not the difference between this and G.I. Joe the movie, was anytime you were, killing off some of the original characters from the first season or 2 seasons, in G.I. Joe, in Transformers, yeah, they were killed off. They were destroyed. They were blown to bits. In G.I. Joe, those characters were written off by just getting injured. They were either written off getting injured or they were captured. However, what's funny is the captured Joes survived and were able to fight back. Unlike the characters in this movie. However, here's what's different here. No characters died here. Of course, that being it's a G-rated film. But like I said, no characters died. But the only thing that may have made you think these characters could have been, certain characters could have been written off, was that this thing here, anytime it touched one of them, caused them to be uncaring, unloving, and basically anything that represented their namesake would kind of fade out. So yeah. But you're probably wondering why I'm even talking about it. Well, quite frankly, it is the 30th anniversary, and I have seen the movie. As a matter of fact, here's a little bit of trivia. I actually recorded the movie onto DVD off the original Kid Rhino release of the film. You're probably wondering why I even have it. Well, quite frankly, I was a kid back in 1986. And quite frankly, I was 6 years old when this movie came out. This movie came out a few weeks after I turned 7. So yeah, I just turned 7 when this came out, and I was still 6 when this was out. So yeah, I did watch all 3 of them. I did watch all the movies. But again, what really surprised me was the fact that this was basically more Disney-like than the other 2 would have been. Or the other 2 were. More Disney-like than this, and more Disney-like than G.I. Joe. Which again, like I said, I'm assuming would have been released in the D. Leonidas Group anyway. But what makes My Little Pony the movie, but here's the question, why was it so different? Well, one, back in the day, they went by what a lot of people still assume they go by these days. The fact that My Little Pony the movie was mainly based for girls. For girls and maybe young kids, like preschoolers and kindergartners. Which, obviously, I would have fallen into the category of. But mainly preschoolers, kindergartners, and maybe first, second graders. Which, again, I fell into the category of. But it was mainly looked at, besides that, it was mainly looked at as a girls' show. And I'm pretty sure they figured, well, we're going to be releasing this in theaters, and that's the ultimate boys' show. So we might as well counter that first and put a girls' show out first. Now, like I said, what was different about My Little Pony the movie when it came to Transformers was My Little Pony was going to be a bridging gap between the 2 specials, Rescue from Midnight Castle and Escape from Katarina, and the series that came after it, because like I said, technically this was a movie pilot for the series that was shown in theaters. The difference though between that and this was Transformers the movie was a bridging gap between season 2 and season 3. That's about it. This basically, like I said, served as a movie pilot and was a bridging gap between the two specials that came before it. Now, did it get a sequel? Well, a lot of people look at Transformers The Return of Optimus Prime as the sequel to Transformers the movie. Some look at Five Faces of Darkness as being the sequel to Transformers the movie. And some even look at Rebirth as the sequel to Transformers the movie. Honestly, if I see a VHS tape out there by Family Home Entertainment that says The Return of Optimus Prime, and on the back, one of the last things it says is the sequel, and one of the things it says in its description is the sequel to Transformers the movie, and it has Ultra Magnus from the poster, from the movie poster, which I have hanging up here, pointing his gun up like this, lined out in white, then yeah, I'm probably going to side with Return of Optimus Prime as being the sequel to Transformers the movie, even though we didn't know it. So yeah, I'd probably side with that. I know others might say otherwise, but that's just me. But again, did this get a sequel? Well, you bet your damn ass it did. And I'm sorry for the language here, but you bet your damn ass it did. It got a sequel, believe it or not, with its first 5-parter, or 10 mini-parter, if you will, The End of Flutter Valley. That's right. It basically continues on from the movie. The End of Flutter Valley is the sequel to My Little Pony, the movie. I know it's hard to believe, but it is. It's actually the sequel. They didn't waste no time in saying, hey, we're going to wait a few episodes later and wait until towards another season and do a sequel. Oh no, we're going to do a sequel right now. And they did. Basically, it's all the main characters that came back. The Witchers were back. You know, everything. Well, not the goo monster, but still, the Witchers were back. And everything. It was just a continuation off of the movie. It was like the movie was chapter 1. Here's chapter 2. That was basically it. That was basically it. So, here's the question. Why was My Little Pony bombed at the box office when it came out? Well, quite frankly, I think it was the fact that it was going up against some competition in the summer of '86, just like Transformers was. But I think also the fact that a lot of the critics, like let's say Leonard Maltin, Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel, and many others, looked at both movies as being nothing more than big toy commercials for the toys. I think they had no real purpose up there. My Little Pony, I think, was even looked at as a Disney knockoff. Didn't really have no point. But when one looks back on it, it's not that bad of a film. It's not that bad of a film. I think the only thing people might criticize about it is the fact that it was distributed by the same people that 2 months later distributed this in theaters, and they were just a huge complete opposite of the other. It's like, come on, you're going in with your family, you're taking your, come on, think about it. If you grandparents out there, you're taking your kid to go see My Little Pony 1 month, 2 months before Transformers. You're taking them. Okay, they see it, they enjoy it, you enjoy it. You're like, oh great, nice. A Disney-like movie, very family friendly. Musical, everything, right? 2 months later, you take your family again, your kids again, to go see this in theaters, and what do you get? Oh my God, what is this? This is the complete opposite of what we saw 2 months ago. What is going on here? That is basically one of the reasons I think the movies got criticized in theaters. The fact that they were hugely different between each other. Like, you couldn't ask for complete opposites. It's kind of like when you take a look at Disney, what they did with the Black Cauldron. 1 year you have the Black Cauldron, the next year you have the Great Mouse Detective. Yeah, both are dark, but Great Mouse Detective was nothing like Black Cauldron. It was like the complete polar opposites. The point is, the point is, I believe some of the main reasons was the fact that fans criticized it. Well, people criticized it, mainly critics criticized this movie because of the fact that, just like Transformers, it was nothing more than a big toy commercial. And that was it. And some might also criticize it because of the fact that it was distributed by the same people that distributed this 2 months later, and they kind of looked at DEG as being hypocrites for giving us a G-rated Disney-like movie 2 months earlier before this. So I don't know. But I do know, man, one of the main reasons it was because obviously a lot of people looked at it as a toy commercial, and I think looking back on it, some people, those same critics probably look at it, those that are still alive, I should say, with all due respect, those that are still alive look back on it and say it was nothing more than a movie pilot for a series. They could have made it as part of the series, period. And believe it or not, they do. Believe it or not, they do. Because here was the one thing that Hasbro did with all three of their films. As the years went on, basically a year or two after the release, maybe 3 years after the release, My Little Pony the movie, Transformers the movie, and G.I. Joe the movie were split up into 5 parts to be shown as miniseries in the show's run. That's right. So after My Little Pony's original first run ended, if you will, a few years later, they decided to split it up into, they decided to take the movie, split it up into 5 parts, and make that be the first thing you saw before you saw the original 5-part miniseries, End of Flood of Valley. So before you saw the End of Flood of Valley, which again, like I said, was the original 5-part miniseries to begin the series officially on television, you would see a 5-part miniseries version of My Little Pony the movie. Same with Transformers. A few years after it came out, after the series was completely over, they decided to release this in miniseries format to bridge the gap between Season 2 and Season 3. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but that's what they did. Same thing with G.I. Joe the movie. After the original series was ending, they decided they were going to take all 5 parts of G.I. Joe the movie and air it as a miniseries. Heck, they even had freaking Sergeant Slaughter do special introductions for it. The point is, My Little Pony was still seen by many people that still enjoyed the Pony Show. They still enjoyed it. Even when Disney Channel had the rights to the series and were airing both My Little Pony Tales as well as the original G1 series, even Disney Channel decided to air the movie in its 5-part format. I think maybe once or twice it aired it completely as a movie, but as part of a show run, they did air it in 5 parts. And that was the one thing I think that kind of helped and sometimes hurt Hasbro as far as these movies went. The fact that you were actually feeding into how people felt about them. You know, people basically felt that these were nothing more than expanded episodes or movies that could have easily been seen on television as miniseries. Well, guess what? You were feeding into it by actually doing that. The point is, getting back on topic here, My Little Pony the movie, 1986, is not that bad of a film. You got to look at it as basically being a Disney-like feature film. That's it. Because like I said, they start out with music. It's a musical all the way through. It's G-rated. It's good for the entire family. And if you got young ones that are basically fanatics of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic now, you could pop this in for them, and guess what? I guarantee you, they will enjoy it. And if you were a fan growing up, whether you were a boy or a girl, and you like both this along with Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Gem, it might bring back memories for you as well. So yeah, that is basically My Little Pony the movie here on episode 2 of the cartoon movie Flashback. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out. God bless.